Ladies and gentlemen, 2025 season has almost begun. It's unbelievable. We're checking in on some of the news here, lads, before we kick this, I'd say, crazy season kicking off. I mean, so many changes in the teams. Hamilton out Ferrari. He's crashed the car already. If you didn't know this, yeah, that's right. He crashed the car now.
Walsh running the Irish green, and look at the move. He's making down to the inside.
Moves to the front from fifth all the way to the lead in lap one.
Walsh takes win number two.
Peter. Wow.
No, not a big deal, okay? Like I was saying in my previous episode, these things happen all the time. But anyway, it's like a boxer getting punched in the face in training or anything. Happens dime a dozen. So nothing to worry about. He's just getting the grips of the car, or he actually had a mechanical problem. But we actually don't know. They didn't tell us. But still, kind of adds to the excitement, don't you think? But anyway, lads, let's look at some of the F1 news here at the moment. And, you know, it's hard to know here. I'm kind of like, I'm getting excited here, and then I'm wondering is this giving us a peek? It's kind of giving me a bit of a headache, I gotta admit. But anyway, the main news here, lads, Hamilton, Leclerc and Piastri in action as Pirelli's Barcelona tyre test concludes. Now, I want to explain some things here. Now, why are they doing a tyre test? They're all on a budget cap. They're all limited for practice and just general testing. So why are they testing tyres? Now, this happens in racing a lot. Even in the lower levels like Formula Ford, Formula 3, 2, up to Formula 1. Even karting, you can get this. Because Pirelli are looking at the 2026 tyres. Now, they need testing. So luckily for these three boys, Piastri, Hamilton, Leclerc, they're getting some mileage. And now the drivers, they don't need the testing itself. Even for Hamilton going to Ferrari, Hamilton's been at it long enough. Believe you me, he doesn't need to actually get testing. It's kind of, I suppose, if you've got a push bike, right, and the saddle's seated just a little differently comparing to your older bike, well then, yeah, you know, it might take a little adjustment, but like, we're not talking, 12 inches higher or 12 inches lower of a saddle here. You know, it's still the same type of bike with the same amount of gears, same suspension in your bike, right? But you just got to get used to the saddle, let's say. And that would be it. So for Hamilton and any of the other drivers, it's nothing. Okay? So the thing is, for Pirelli though, they need to test out new compounds. They get a handful of drivers, and by the way, there's no secret why they're giving these guys the crack at the wheel here. There's politics involved here. All right, there's politics. But Pirelli anyway, you see, they need to know if a soft, medium or hard tire, how much of the endurance, the reliability, how consistent are they? So it's not just about, it doesn't matter whether you've got soft, medium or hard. You still have to know, are they going to last a certain amount of laps until they fall off? Okay, so Pirelli, for instance, they might try and set up, right, lads, we want to have a better, softer tire than any of the other tire manufacturers out there. So instead of, we want to completely blow away, impress the Formula One team so good that they might want a soft tire to last, let's say, example now, they might want it to last 10 laps. But after that, it falls off a cliff. Now, you see, the problem is that if they go for a 10-lapper, then you're really putting everything into 10 laps, and that's it, right? Now, obviously, then there's a pro. Technically, the tire is going to be a lot faster, but it goes off quicker. So that is the general rule of soft tires. At the same time, they have to know where the fine line is. Have they gone too far down the rabbit hole of getting the really grippy tires? Because if they have, well, then all of a sudden you might have a tire explode. So it's very important. Like, safety is a big part of this as well. So they have to get some testing in, and that's why they're doing this a year before the new tires come out with Pirelli. So again, it will be the same for medium and hard compound. I mean, it's a lot of testing, lads. And, you can do all your simulator training, you can do all your wind tunnel, but that doesn't do anything for tires. You have to get the tires on concrete, on tarmac, out on a real surface. And even air temperature matters a lot as well. Humidity, is it humid or is it a dry heat? Is it a cold place? Does the track actually hold on to grip? Is it a very slippy track? I mean, there's so many elements to it. It's so amazingly technical that it is very hard to explain, but that's why anyway these guys were out there. Now Leclerc ended his day with a 1:14.9 after 74 laps. Piastri did a 15.8, so he's 9 tenths behind. Hamilton clocked in a 16.7 after 74 laps. So Hamilton did the same amount of laps as Leclerc, but he's actually he's 1.8 seconds behind. Now, it has no real significance given the different work programs carried out. That's what Pirelli have said, and I would just completely confirm that too. Hamilton could have gone for a longer spell. Okay, he could have done a 20-lap stint instead of a 5-lap stint, and the Pirelli would have tried to sign up the drivers to do that. In other words, okay, Lewis, can you do a long run? Whereas we're going to get Piastri on a shorter run. Then they'll maybe for the second day they'll switch it around, and then they'll take the feedback and the notes from each different car and see how they go. Now, the reason why they're in Spain and Barcelona is because it would have consistent heat. So in other words, there's no point of doing 2 days testing where it would be a waste. Well, not a waste, but it would be a really huge shame for the team, because if they're on a certain mission, isn't right, lads, it's all about the dry, soft tire. That's what we're really focusing on here for the 2 days. So the better the more consistent the heat is, then they cross that off the list. So in other words, okay, lads, well, look, Lewis was going really well, but then he was going really bad the next day. Is that because of the weather? Well, then with Barcelona and the consistency in the heat, then they're going to go, right, well, it's definitely not the heat, lads. So then that's one less thing to worry about. And that's the way they would look at these type of scenarios. And just another bit of inside info for you. When you're watching now Formula 1 2025 this year, lads, do you know the way they weave the tires? Okay, when they're on the warm-up lap, just before they line up on the race, on the racing grid to start off. The reason why they do this, it's not to warm the tires up. It's just for a bit of show. And I know this from being in the racing world. The only way you actually get grip in your tires is by the weight transfer from front to back, front to back, front to back with the power. So then if you can almost catapult your weight from the back, throw it to the front and slam on the brakes, then that load is pushing the car down to the ground and to the surface, and it causes a heavy load. Therefore, it's causing friction in the tires, not locking up the tires, but it does cause the friction, and that's what gets the heat in the tires. The whole moving around, that's all for show. That's just, look at me, lads, I'm doing something with the car before we start off here on the race, okay? But it's mainly the heat transfer, and that's the real key. So when you see them going left and right, they're not doing it to warm the actual tires up. You'll even see it when they go on to the onboard lap, or the onboard camera, when they're on the warm-up lap, lads. You'll see that a lot of them go, woo, right? They're accelerating then on the brakes fast. That's what they're doing. They're warming up the tires. Even if it's wet, intermediate, or slick tires, that's the whole key. Okay, so let's have a look at other stuff. So we have Sainz here. Now, poor old Carlos Sainz resorting from Ferrari back to Williams. Now, he said here, Carlos has said he's opened up on the decision to join Williams for the 20, explaining that the project and the people were the key factors that made him immediately fall in love with the team. All right. Well, Sainz was centered to last year's driver market following the bombshell pre-season announcement that obviously Hamilton announced. He'd be replacing as Leclerc's teammate at Ferrari. Now, Almost every team was linked with the Spaniard's services, but months of speculation where he might end up. Williams won the race and signed him to a multi-year deal alongside Albon. Now, during a visit to the Williams factory, Sainz took some time out for a staff Q&A fronted by team boss James Vowles, with the first question being what convinced him about Williams' prospects. And he said the following: "You might have seen me in some interviews mention it before, but for me, what was fundamental was not so much the short term as you opened up on a decision-making process. At the beginning, when I was having to take such an important decision, I was very focused on which team was going to be quicker in 2025, who was generating more downforce, who was finding out stuff that is going to make them quicker. Finally, I realized that my decision has to be based on two things, the project and the people. When I started discussing more in detail with James, I realized that he had put together a very strong project here. He was forming a team with a vision, a project together, team owners Dorlan, that I think is going to bring his team back to the front. Very strong leadership and a vision that immediately made me, let's say, fall in love with the project and trust his leadership. Then I say people, but it's part of the same thing." Okay, well, look, lads, I'm going to call this one. And believe me, I'm not having a go off Carlos Sainz here. What Carlos Sainz has had to go through is incredibly tough. Think about this. He's gone from Ferrari, one of the top teams, down to Williams. Williams have been absolutely bloody nowhere for years and years. They were one of the legends of all time when Frank Williams was taking over, but right now, they ain't anywhere. And the problem here, really, when I'm reading between the lines as an ex-racing driver here, I think what's really going on here is that he ran out of options. And look, you can't blame him, right? I get, and believe me, if I was in Formula One right now, and if I was in his position, you'd still stay in Formula One with the hope that you'll get back into one of the top teams. Now, you give it a couple of years, and if the clock is ticking away and you're thinking, this isn't happening, man, then you might be thinking, okay, listen, maybe we got to just call it a day here. We're never getting back in with one of the top teams ever again, right? Or even if you think Williams have no chance, well then, maybe you'll call it a day. Now, I'm not saying I would or he would, but I'm saying, you'll give it a couple of years, see what happens, and then you go from there. And that's I wouldn't say it's a smart move, but it's a hopeful move. And you can't fault the guy for doing this. Jeez, absolutely not. I just think when he's saying this, he's kind of making it out to be that he's going to Williams. He had loads of options and, but I chose Williams. I don't think that's happening here. All right. He's trying to save face a little bit. And look, that's okay. And, if you really do pay attention between the lines here, lads, I think what you'll notice is that what's happened with James Vowles, I mean, the way he's been acting last year when he kicked out Logan Sargent out of his car midway through a season because his teammate crashed the car. I'm telling you, that is the worst bit of lunacy I've ever seen in a team, because it doesn't just affect the drivers, it affects the teams, because you've got Logan Sargent's team on one end, then you've got Alex Albon's on the other. That causes serious friction, causes serious insecurity and vulnerability, not knowing that, geez, are we even going to be working this weekend on Logan's car? What if this dickhead here next to me actually crashes the car again, and then we have to hand over the keys to him because he crashes, like rewarding bad behavior? I mean, how insane is that? Imagine being at your office, your job, at your desk, and because some a-hole makes a mistake, the boss comes along and say, no, you know what? Sorry, John. Peter here, he messed up, but we're giving him your job here, okay? Sorry, just take the weekend off. Yeah, you're done. Good luck. You're like, what? No, lads, I'm midway through my project here. Are you kidding me? I need to finish this. It's part of my job, right? That's why you pay me. No, don't worry about it. You're grand. You're like, now, maybe you like the time off. but I'll put it this way, lads. It wouldn't give you major security. But would it? Imagine, think about that now for a second. Your boss tells you to go home. Maybe if it happened a couple of times, you'd be like, all right, screw it. I got a couple of days off. Perfect. And if you're asleep at the wheel, maybe you are, but imagine then all it takes is your mother or your friend to say, are you sure your boss isn't trying to replace you, John, here? Are you sure about that? Then all of a sudden paranoia starts to kick in. Guess what happens? Now you're uneasy when you go back to your desk because you're like, oh, jeez, what if now? What if he wants Peter to be sitting here? Do you know where I'm coming from? I can't tell you the shockwaves this would have sent through that Williams team when he did this crap last year, lads. Now look, hey, if you're a Williams fan, each to their own. So be it, and best of luck. But I'm telling you, lads, what this guy's doing, Carlos Sainz, if he had options, I honestly don't think Carlos Sainz would be going there after what he did to Logan Sargent last year. He would have been like, whoa, 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 whoa. I ain't going anywhere near this psychopath. That's what you'd be saying. And James Vowles is very, very close to being a psychopath. I mean, it's crazy. I wouldn't call him that, but what he's doing, man, mental. Now, here's the thing. Can Carlos actually spin this around? Maybe, just maybe, Williams can find the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow here. Maybe they can just find something, and I can't see it happen for 2025. Now, with the way the rules are not changing much this year, there's always a better chance than that the slower teams will catch up, and that includes Williams here as well. I just don't see it. I think they're too far behind. Then again, we saw McLaren only a few years ago come from way at the back to a race-winning team out of nowhere, as we all have seen. So, you never know. And I like Carlos Sainz. And you know something, lads? I hope I'm wrong. Even though I do not like that James Vowles guy, I would love to see Carlos Sainz do well. I really, truly would. So let's say a prayer for him, because he's a nice guy. He seems like a classy guy. He's not cocky. He's a humble guy. And, he went through a lot with his appendicitis last year. That was very tough to bounce back. I had huge admiration for the guy when he had to bounce back after last year. So utmost credit for that boy. So fingers crossed I am wrong. And more news, lads. Well, to me, this is the biggest news of the year, because this is Aston Martin confirmed their launch date for 2025 Challenger. They've announced that their 25 car will break cover on the 23rd of February, days after the team unveil their rivalry for their campaign during the F1 75 live season launch at London's O2 on the 18th of February. They're calling it the AMR 25, will be launched across the squad's digital channels before it hits the track one day later as part of the promotional event at the Bahrain circuit on February 24th. Only a few days after that, Aston Martin will join the rest of the field for the pre-season testing at the same venue, which will take place for 3 days, February 26th, lads, February 27th, and the 28th. And my Lord God, I honestly think, lads, this is the team to watch out for this year. Not Red Bull, not Hamilton at Ferrari, not Carlos Sainz at Williams, Fernando Alonso, Lance Stroll, and Adrian Newey. This is the man that has won 25 World Championship titles, including Constructors' titles. Adrian Newey, the wizard behind the curtain. And Adrian Newey is now at this team. And what has he done? Now, we think about this, lads. What is very, very interesting about this one here is that Adrian Newey, if you remember, lads, there was a huge nuclear bomb that detonated in Red Bull halfway through 24 season. Adrian Newey left. And all of a sudden, we see Adrian Newey at the launch of the new signing of him for Aston Martin. Now, he's had 6 months to prepare, mentally prepare, get his feet wet to a degree. Now, we don't know the amount of restrictions they would have had on Adrian Newey being allowed to go here from either Red Bull or just in general from the FIA, but he's in it now. Now, can he turn this car around? Sometimes it takes years. Sometimes it can take one magical throw of the dice, like McLaren did only last year, when 2 years ago, sorry, when they did that, and last year, when they went from back of the field. One race later, boom, they're up at the top winning races and podiums. One lucky throw of the dice. Now, here's the thing with Mr. Newey. It isn't lucky throws of the dice, okay? I'll put it this way. Sometimes, for these guys, it can be like throwing darts at a board. See what sticks. Now, for Adrian Newey, this man's going to need less darts to throw at the board. He might need 10 where everybody else needs 20. Now, and you'll know that one of them is going to stick, but Adrian Newey just needs less. It's just a matter of, will Adrian Newey get a little bit luckier with his predictions of how the car is going to go? And Australia is the first round. It's going to be very interesting. Now, I think we're going to get a very good idea of the balance of the car at Bahrain, because you do have slow speed, mid speed, a few high speed corners. Now, the problem is you can't get a complete read on the balance because they're uphill corners in Bahrain. So you need to have a balance of flat, downhill and uphill fast speed bends. But it'll give them an indication. It'll give them a good indication of there and thereabouts. So to me, if I had to put my money on it, I think you're going to have Aston Martin, Adrian Newey, kicking ass. Hard to know if it's going to be at the start of the year. Very hard to know. But I would think if Adrian Newey gets everything, all his ducks in a row, probably by the 4th to 5th race, that guy's going to be on it. Now, maybe he's on it already. But wow. And okay, lads, well, look, some of the first 3 races, we've got a full announcement list here of the race starting times. Now, I know that probably doesn't sound very exciting to you, but look, here's the thing. I'm going by London GMT time here. For the first 3 races, we've got early starts. So Australia, it's a 4 o'clock in the morning start. For China, it's a 7 a.m. start, not the worst. Japan, you've got a 5 a.m. start. So we do have to wait until Bahrain, April the 13th. If you're in London GMT time or if you're in America, we've got a 3 o'clock start. So we do have to wait another month before it's sort of, reasonable hours, should we say. But look, it's up and down. But 4 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 5 in the morning, they're not the worst times in the world to be starting. 4 o'clock for Australia, yeah, but at least we're kind of getting it out of the way, which is good. And finally, before we end the episode today, lads, Russell has set out his goals for the 25 season. Now, as we all know, he's the number 1 golden boy at Mercedes. Hamilton is gone, so they're putting all their attention into Russell. And let's be honest, they did put a lot of their attention into Russell last year after Hamilton dropped that nuclear bomb at the team. So Russell has set out his goals out of the 25 season. And drivers citing improving his race pace as one of his key targets for the up-and-coming campaign. Despite mixed fortunes in 24, Russell enjoyed particularly strong form in qualifying, having beaten Hamilton 18-6 thanks to his 1-lap pace. That's a great achievement, lads. We got to remember, 18 times he out-qualified and beat Hamilton versus 6 times. Now, as he prepares for his 4th season with the team, can you believe he's there for 4? This is his 4th year? Incredible. Which he'll also welcome new teammate Antonelli stepping up to replace Ferrari-bound Hamilton. Russell's hoping to replicate the level of his qualifying performances on race day. Now, he does say here, my goals are very much the same and the approach has not changed. Formula One is so unique, so you cannot really set goals like that. If I say that I want to win 4 races this year because last year I won 3, I'm not going to be satisfied if I win 5, but the car is capable at 10. I tend to keep my goals on more detailed targets. Last year qualifying was my strength, but my race pace was not always the best. I know I have the speed over one lap, but there's no reason why I should not be able to convert that over the course of a race. He says, I need to work on some elements to achieve that, and there'll be some other goals that perhaps are not clear to the fans at home, but are at the forefront on my mind. The great thing about F1 is you enter a new year with a new car and new limitations. Something that may have been a strength last year may not be this year. You always have to adapt. So he said the break is needed for everybody in Formula 1, but honestly, I was eager to get back to it. There's a bit of time until the first race, but the first day here is a step towards that. What's so great is that you see how motivated everyone's going to see. Russell gave it into his own preparation. He said, I started my physical trainer on the 2nd of January. The 3-time race winner said, we've done a few weeks now. The second week was absolutely brutal. We built into it. The last thing you want to do is go out too hard and injure yourself. I kept moving over the break anyway, keeping mobile to avoid sitting around all day doing nothing, and the rest. So, okay, lads, like I have been saying in the 24 season, and if you've been following me, I've said this so many times, that George Russell, yeah, he's even saying it here. Now, I don't know if he's putting the blame on him or if he's putting the blame on the race pace of the car. George Russell is more of a qualifier than a racer. Now, this happens a lot in racing. You can have a guy that's the overall package, a Senna, who's unbelievable in qualifying and unbelievable in race. Then you've got some guys who are really good at qualifying and they lack the race. They lack the racing fight, the spirit. Then you can flip it around. You get some guys who are really good at race pace, but they just lack a bit in qualifying. George Russell does break down into that. He's a great qualifier, but he does lack in race pace. Now, maybe the guy's going to prove me wrong and he's going to absolutely obliterate people this year. And not only that, he might pull out something that you never would have thought he would have done. Now, we haven't seen Russell do that yet. And time will tell. Time will tell. I'll still leave it open that, hey, prove me wrong, Russell boy. Prove me wrong. And let's see what you can do this year. And, you know, he seems like a motivated guy. He's on the ball. He wants to do well. And you know what? If they can do it, so be it. Great for them. Mercedes, they're a great team. So can they do it this year? Remains to be seen. They have struggled since the budget cap has come in. And they just couldn't throw money at a problem. And can they do it? I think their car is going to be very, very good over the tracks like Brazil, the off-camber tracks, up, down, off-camber, on-camber, uphill, downhill, bumpy. That car does seem to be quite balanced over an unbalanced track. Whereas if it's a balanced track, they do seem to kind of struggle a bit. But we shall see. And guys, obviously we'll be back a lot more with more F1 insight before the race or the season starts. But that's it for today. Quite exciting times ahead, lads. And one thing's for sure. Keep a good eye on Adrian Newey at Aston Martin this year. Sayonara.
Walsh running the Irish green, and look at the move he's making down to the inside.
Moves to the front from fifth all the way to the lead in lap 1.
Walsh takes win number 2.
Peter. Walsh.